The UK government has ordered councils to display European Union flags across England as part of a condition to receive COVID recovery cash from Brussels. RT UK host Kate Partridge branded the move embarrassing for the British government and suggested the EU's rules appeared heavy-handed. Under the Welcome Back Fund, councils in towns and cities across the UK have been given £56 million EU cash to support the return to high street safely and to build back better from the pandemic. However, under this scheme, councils are required to display the blue and yellow flag, even though Britain left the bloc last year. The humiliating order comes from Brussels and is enforced by Westminster. Despite Brexit, details of the withdrawal agreement mean that UK is still eligible for certain payments from the fund until the end of 2023, but only if the UK follows Brussels rules. This means thousands of new EU flags will be posted on official buildings and in public places across the country. It comes just 4 months after the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport announced it was repealing planning rules in a bid to make it harder to fly EU flags. Ms. Partridge discussed the scheme with Councillor Professor Robert Barr, who is the Liberal Democrat group leader of the Warrington Borough. The money will be spent on street planning, extra seating, green spaces, and the removal of graffiti. The RT host said, "Doesn't it seem a bit embarrassing on one hand, but good news that the government took the cash?" Mr. Barr responded, "I think it's great news that they took the cash. It shouldn't be embarrassing, but the government has intentionally made it embarrassing. Because they want to make this part of its culture war. It's a shame because this is a really good opportunity to show we can work together sensibly with the EU even though we have left. As EU protocol, if EU money is used, then it is acknowledged and that seems reasonable." Ms. Partridge responded, "But it does sound like the EU is being a bit heavy-handed." Mr. Barr said, "I don't think so, they have a rule book and if we want their money we have to follow the conditions." Liberal Democrat frontbencher Christine Jardine said, "This shows the absurd hypocrisy of this Conservative government. They have spent years denouncing EU projects and pulling the UK out of funding schemes like this. And now they have the gall to trumpet a fund made possible by exactly the sort of European cooperation they are turning their backs on. Instead of worrying about displaying the EU flag, the government should be working hard to support the thousands of struggling high street businesses." A spokesperson for the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government blamed the EU and said, "We are ramping up UK-wide domestic funding to at least match what the EU currently offers, reaching around £1.5 billion a year." The UK left the Lugano Convention, an international treaty negotiated by the bloc, which attempts to clarify which national courts have jurisdiction in disputes, because of Brexit. Boris Johnson then reapplied to join last April, but it has since emerged that the European Commission has recommended the EU deny the request, stating the bloc is not in a position to give its consent to UK accession. News of Brussels' petulant actions were instantly slammed by many UK comment channel readers, angry at the perceived attempt to punish the country for leaving. One raged, "Never in the field of British politics has so much been ruined for so many by so few." Another wrote, "Every day a new vindictive punishment to an ex-member. What country would ever in their right minds want to join the EU? Do as we say, or you will be punished. What a bunch they are." A third said, "Just one more reason to minimize UK dealings with the EU. Failure to join the bloc has come as a hammer blow to Mr. Johnson's ambition to keep the UK's world-beating legal services sector." According to the Law Society, legal services contributed nearly £60 billion to the UK in 2018. While a year earlier exports of legal services amounted to £5 billion. The legal services sector employs over 350,000 people, with 2/3 of those jobs outside of London, according to Scott Devine from the City UK, a body representing UK-based financial and professional services. But there are now growing fears at failure to rejoin the international treaty. And the continued diminishing relations between the UK and EU following Brexit could make a major dent in this crucial sector. Former Attorney General Dominic Grieve said his concern is the long-term viability of London as a centre for dispute resolution. He added the longer this continues, the more potentially damaging it may become because there's no doubt that the UK, when it was in the EU, was seen as the place of dispute resolution of choice for EU litigation of every conceivable kind. Mr. Johnson will also be concerned by the fact that with the UK outside of the convention, EU nations can directly compete with London for business in the sector. Former Spanish Judge Josep Galvez said, "The alternatives are slowly becoming clear for international companies that want to operate in the EU and don't want any blockages." This Lugano limbo the UK finds itself in is the worst situation possible, as lawyers on both sides have no clarity on what will happen in the long term. I think the EU wants to make the UK suffer and give EU jurisdictions the opportunity to take business from England. Britain is on the verge of reaching herd immunity, with 90% of adults estimated to have COVID-19 antibodies, handing a massive boost to Prime Minister Boris Johnson barely a week after his Freedom Day gamble. And one scientist has gone so far as to predict, this pandemic is pretty much over for the UK. Coronavirus data published by the government indicates a definite downward trend in the number of cases, with the 7-day average standing at 30,494 as of July 25, the most recent data available, compared with a week earlier, when the figure stood at 47,695.7, in other words, a drop of 36%. Daily cases rose for the first time since July 17 yesterday, up from 23,511 to 27,734. But several scientists believe there is nevertheless light at the end of the tunnel. University College's Professor Carl Friston told The Telegraph, "We are currently close to, but not at, herd immunity, according to real-time estimates based upon dynamic causal modeling. We are currently close to, but not at, herd immunity, according to real-time estimates based upon dynamic causal modeling." Professor Friston believes the nation actually achieved herd immunity in the spring, only to slip back as a result of the onset of the more infectious Delta variant. As a result, the herd immunity threshold has been raised to 93%. But he estimated the UK population was tantalizingly near, at 87%. He said, but as witnessed by the recent decline in notification rates, we do not need to reach a herd immunity threshold to bring the effective R number below 1 and, in principle, suppress viral transmission. Similarly, Dr. David Matthews, who is a virologist specializing in coronaviruses at the University of Bristol, said, "In terms of herd immunity, by which we mean the virus has managed to reach everybody, and therefore most people will have a level of immune memory, I suspect we're very close to it. Assuming nothing truly spectacularly left field happens, then this pandemic is pretty much over for the UK. I suspect we will not see a major surge this winter, or any serious levels of fatalities. The more Britain was able to close the gap on the 10% who had not been vaccinated, the better everyone would be," he stressed, emphasizing the importance of getting the jab. Professor Matthews added, "I've worked on a lot of respiratory viruses and controversially I believe this virus isn't a killer. Flu kills babies and old people and it's quite capable of killing people who have had the vaccine. But the issue here is that collectively, as a species, humans have no memory of this virus, so everyone's immune system is starting from scratch. That's okay if you're a child, but not if you're in your 50s, 60s and 70s and relying on the memory of previous viruses. I think we will eventually live in a world where you will meet this virus as a kid and develop immunity early. Reaching a truce with the virus is probably where we're heading." Speaking yesterday, Imperial College's Professor Neil Ferguson, a member of the government's Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies (SAGE), who had previously feared a summer peak of between 100,000 and 200,000 cases a day, struck a much more optimistic tone. He said, "We're not completely out of the woods, but the equation has fundamentally changed. The effect of vaccines is hugely reducing the risk of hospitalizations and death. And I'm positive that, by late September or October time, we will be looking back at most of the pandemic. We will have COVID with us, we will still have people dying from COVID, but we'll have put the bulk of the pandemic behind us. Speaking yesterday, Mr. Johnson said the signs were encouraging, but nevertheless urged caution about the possibility of the third wave having peaked. He said, the most important thing is for people to recognize that the current situation still calls for a lot of caution. And for people just to remember that the virus is still out there, that a lot of people have got it, it still presents a significant risk. China is gaining a tighter grip over the UK through its involvement in renewable energy projects, including electric vehicles. According to concerned Tories who fear Britain is falling into a trap. Prime Minister Boris Johnson previously outlined his 10-point plan to create 250,000 British jobs in clean energy, transport, nature and innovative technologies to allow the UK to reach the legally binding net zero target by 2050. At the centre of his green industrial revolution are the UK's industrial heartlands, which will drive forward the green industrial revolution and build green jobs and industries of the future. Just days ago, Japanese car manufacturer Nissan confirmed it was creating 400 jobs at its Sunderland plant, after announcing it was investing £1 billion in the Wareside site. In June, it was also revealed that Nissan's Chinese partner, Envision AESC, will build an electric battery plant as part of that investment. And it is not the only project that Beijing has influence over. Kieran Martin, the former chief executive of the National Cybersecurity Center, said earlier this week that the purchase of Newport wafer fab by Chinese-owned Nexperia poses a greater threat to British interests than Huawei's involvement in the 5G network. Mr. Martin described the future of microchip supply as a first-order strategic issue for the government to get a handle on. Mr. Johnson has asked National Security Advisor Sir Stephen Lovegrove to look at the deal, worth a reported £63 million, but that has not done much to calm the growing concerns. Senior Conservatives reportedly fear the UK is falling into a trap by handing over sensitive aspects of its green industrial revolution to China. They also cite the involvement of China General Nuclear, CGN, who is involved in the building of 2 nuclear reactors in the UK. The Chinese state-owned company was hoping to use both projects as a springboard to building a Chinese-designed reactor at Bradwell-on-Sea in Essex. But Whitehall is said to have cited fears that a Chinese nuclear plant within 30 miles of London would be politically unpalatable. A senior government source reportedly said that while doing business with China was essential, some areas are just too sensitive to allow for trade or investment with the world's second-largest economy. They add that others, in both the party and the cabinet, believe the UK should focus on securing more foreign investment and see commercial ties as a force for influence over China. One senior Tory reportedly said, "There's a sense that any investment is good investment. That people are somehow being hysterical if they raise worries about the risks China poses to the country." But another reportedly added, "This is a country we have reprimanded publicly for attacking sensitive technologies. How are international allies meant to take us seriously if we're handing Beijing the keys to our green technology revolution?" Cyber attacks, allegations of genocide against Uyghur Muslims in the country's Xinjiang region, and an increased military presence in the Taiwan Strait are all said to have stoked concerns. Britain has already announced plans to remove technology made by China's Huawei from its 5G telecoms network by the end of 2027. Lord Peter Ricketts, a crossbench peer and former National Security Advisor, told The Independent that Newport will be a test case for the government's new National Security and Investment Act, which is meant to strengthen its ability to intervene in mergers and acquisitions. He said, "Most of all it shows up the lack of any mechanism for Western governments to coordinate their policy in Chinese investments of potential security concern. Each government seems to be making up their criteria as they go along."